Your watch has begun.
Hello and welcome to a very sombre episode of Last Night's Watch, your weekly Game of Thrones catch-up show right here on GamesRadar Plus. Now, Andy is still away ranging north of the wall, so you're stuck with me, but I'm very glad to be joined by our Lord of Light Entertainment, Lauren O'Callaghan.
Hey, yeah, this week we're talking about the mid-season episode, episode 5, called The Door. And if you haven't seen it, once again, turn away now because we're going to ruin it for you.
So coming up this week, we're going to be looking at what's next for Jon Snow. We'll be looking at the kingsmoot on the Iron Islands. But first, let's check out all the crazy shit that's been happening to Bran.
Bran, wake up! Bran, wake up!
I don't even know what to say, to be honest.
No, speechless.
I mean, Hodor has died.
Yeah, it's
shit.
Yeah.
I've cried before watching Game of Thrones. You kind of learn that you're going to get your heart cut out. I didn't even cry this time. I felt nothing. It was just pure kind of shocked. I can't believe it. I kind of just want to give up.
It was a weird one for me because last week we had that kind of big emotional moment and that kind of really got to me, and this got to me in a totally different way, and it was sort of similarly kind of affecting, but just the way everything slowly fell into place and you kind of understood what Hodor was and what that meant and stuff. I thought it was really, really cleverly done. But God, it ripped my heart out and stamped on it.
Watching this episode and then hearing hold the door and then slowly, like you were saying, everything falling into place. I'm pretty sure I freaked out everyone on the train that I was on when I watched it because I suddenly just went, and then no sooner have you had that like incredible revelation, but then he like dies.
Yeah, it's like you barely got a chance to sort of know him as knowing the truth about what he was. It's and just the way it was done as well, the kind of all the grabby hands and the ripping and the tearing and stuff. It was pretty grim, but like in some ways I'm kind of glad that at least like a character who's kind of likeable as Hodor got to have like an amazing sort of heroic last stand, which was lovely.
So the actor who actually plays Hodor, Christian, was actually saying this, that he felt it was right for his character that Hodor would sacrifice himself for his friends. He felt that was very true, and I completely agree. It's exactly like you were saying, like, was there any way that he was going to leave the show other than sacrifice himself to help Bran?
And also obviously loads and loads of like quite interesting implications for the way that fate works in Game of Thrones and Bran's ability to influence things that have happened. If he does he have any ability? Is he just sort of part of the wheel of time, or
well, this
or
is the interesting thing, really, because we were kind of under the impression with his flashback visions that he can't change the past. It's happened. But this shows us that something he did had direct consequences. Now, it has already happened because we've already known Hodor that way. But yeah, it's interesting because you do start to think, like, how much else is he going to change? Like, how big of a role is Bran going to have in, what is essentially the destruction of his own family? Yeah,
I mean, it's potentially huge. And there's kind of hints throughout this episode as well at other things that he maybe could have influenced. So there's that bit with Varys, which we'll probably talk about in a bit, where they're talking about a voice coming from the fire and stuff, and that's exactly the sort of stuff, like there's kind of whispers in the distance that could influence stuff. So and then you start thinking about, like, not is he the Lord of Light, but is he one of the voices that's speaking to the Red Priestesses and stuff, and you can kind of extrapolate that. And
what's it going to do to him as well? Like, I mean, as heartbreaking it is for us to watch it, for the character Bran to know that he caused this in Hodor, that Hodor was, a kid like any other until this happened, that not only is he the reason for Hodor's disability, but also Hodor died to save him. I mean, I think that's not something that is going to have no effect on him in the present day.
No. I mean, there's a lot of people on Reddit kind of angry at Bran for...
I think Bran's angry at Bran. Like, you would be, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, the kind of him going and seeing the Night's King sort of under his own steam and getting touched and all that sort of stuff. Like, there is an element of it being his fault. I don't really...
Yeah.
Like, honestly, with the time stuff, I don't know if you can blame Bran for it. I don't understand how it works yet. Like,
No.
Would it have happened anyway? Is he just sort of a
I mean,
coder?
he was warned about the dangers of doing that. I mean, I feel like the warning could have been a bit more specific.
If he is planning on going south, what implications does that have for the
yeah.
wall? And there's one throwaway line as Jon's leaving the wall. He says goodbye to Ed, and he says, "Don't let it fall down while I'm away."
Oh gosh.
Which is Game of Thrones' fault. The wall is definitely going to fall down.
I never thought about that. You're so right. Because if that mark stays on him and that's what's going to break the magic, he can't cross the wall without basically unleashing the White Walkers.
Potentially, yeah. And you could sort of see the whole thing crashing down. And that kind of links into like another theory that was doing the rounds of increasingly we're less sure of like what influence Bran has had and what influence he's going to have and who he is. And there's a line that old Nan says in the I think in one of the first books where he sort of she's talking because she's so old that she's seen everyone grow up.
Right, yeah.
She saw his uncle Brandon grow up. And there's a throwaway line of like, well, you know, sometimes I can't tell which Bran you are. So there's like a train of thought saying, if he can go back to wherever he wants, is he maybe Bran the Builder? Like, was there even a Bran the Builder? Was he the guy that built the wall in the first place?
I mean, is the question going to be if he spends that much time there, he just ends up staying and becomes Bran the Builder?
Yeah, it's kind of mad. And there's loads of increasingly strange theories.
Anyway, it's not the only revelation we had around Bran. This week we also found out how the White Walkers were originally created, which is pretty big news. And it seems like we have the Children of the Forest to blame for that.
Yeah, that was a mistake, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think they know it's a mistake. They're trying to fix it. But yeah, so it was revealed that it was originally to fight mankind, who were, you know, destroying nature, as we tend to do.
I didn't dislike that. I'm generally not a fan of like really explicit explanations of where, like, especially something like the White Walkers, because they're quite
So
a cool, mysterious force.
yeah.
Like, it feels a little bit too close to kind of midichlorians in Star Wars for my liking, but I did like it. It was interesting.
That's funny because I feel completely different opposite way. Like, I want to know, like, I need to know where something comes from. Like, I always think it's such a cop-out in shows and in movies where they sort of say, oh, it's mysterious. It's like, well,
I can see where you're coming from with that. Yeah.
Like, you can't just blame magic. Like, magic can be the reason, but I want you to explain why.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll just have to agree to disagree.
Crucially as well, the way they seem to be being made was by having a shard of dragonglass pushed inside them.
Was that dragonglass?
It looked like it,
I thought it was, yeah. So that's obviously why dragonglass is the only thing that can kill them.
I do wonder what the hell's going to happen to him and Mira. Like,
yeah, they've lost, you know, it's kind of just them. I mean, obviously Summer as well, sacrificed herself. So yeah, it's really is just the two of them. So I think they're going to struggle because the White Walkers aren't going to give up that easily.
No. So before we move on to talk about the Kingsmoot, we're going to have a look at last week's trivia question. Now, last week, Lauren, I asked you who was the first person to get kicked through the moon door.
Yeah, and I knew the answer, but chose not to say because I didn't want to ruin it for everyone.
Clever. See, always thinking about the viewers. Yeah. So quite a few people got it right. Immaculate Knowledge, Charles Crimes, and the brilliantly named Sausage Bread Wurst all knew that it was Servadus Egan who got kicked through the moon door by Bronn, who was duelling to save Tyrion's life.
So this week it's my turn. I'm going to be asking you a question. You ready?
I'm always ready for Game of Thrones trivia.
Oh, okay. So confident. Okay, so we know that we're going to talk about the Kingsmoot in a minute, but Euron Greyjoy is back. He's already killed his brother. Now, in the show, most of Balon's brothers have been written out, but in the book, he actually has quite a lot. How many does he have?
How many brothers does Balon have?
Yeah, Balon Greyjoy, how many brothers does he have?
He has 3, I think.
Do you?
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think there's Euron.
Are you sure?
Victarion.
Would you like to phone a friend?
No, and there's another one who's one of the sea priests whose name I can't remember.
All right, show off. We didn't ask for names.
Always giving you more.
Okay, well, if you think Matt's right or if you think you know the answer, make sure you let us know in the comments below. While you're doing that, we're going to move on and talk about the Kingsmoot and what actually happened on the Iron Islands this episode.
We speak in the presence of the drowned god. In his name, we gather today to choose a new king as our leader. Who makes a claim?
I am Yara Greyjoy, daughter of Balon Greyjoy, king of the Iron Islands. I claim the Salt Throne.
Okay, so the Kingsmoot. This kind of went exactly how I would have expected it to go.
Yeah.
So I think they kind of did a good job last week of building up. Like Theon came back, and Yara was kind of going to go for it, and she's like a really cool character, and the one that you presumably want to lead, which means you're definitely not going to get it.
Yeah, exactly. This is the one of the things that really annoys me is like, yes, this is what we thought was going to happen, but it's happened because once again, the guys on the Iron Islands are ridiculous, and they don't want Yara to lead, even though she's perfect, just because she's a woman.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, what?
And Euron, like, I know we haven't seen too much of him, but that guy is a grade A arsehole.
Yeah.
He's like, I mean, it's good to have another bad guy, and I think we'll see more of that as we see more of him. But.
And like, it's for sure as well, because I think like, okay, we knew he wasn't a good guy because he killed his brother in the other episode, but you know, on a scale of Game of Thrones, like he could be okay. But then, as soon as he was crowned king, his first words as king were like, "Let's go murder my niece and nephew."
And he's like running up the hill with his little driftwood crown.
Which I actually wasn't sure that was going to happen or not. You know, I thought maybe Yara and Theon would kind of work under him and kind of work to overthrow him, but they were like, no, fuck it, in the boats, let's go, let's go. And they were right to, because he had murder on his mind.
Yeah, they're like, they're sort of cast as a bad lot, the Iron Islanders, and I think the problem is perhaps that Yara and Theon are kind of, they're quite sort of sympathetic characters.
They're actually nice people, like occasionally. Yeah.
Euron's he's I think, I don't know if we've seen it, but his boat is called Silence in the book.
Yes.
Because he's ripped everyone's tongues out. Which kind of gives you an indication of what kind of guy he is.
Yeah, we should have known, really.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was interesting is that he mentions when he is kind of doing his pitch to be voted king, he kind of talks about how he's going to use the fleet to seduce Daenerys into marrying him, which is really interesting because that is in the books. He sends an emissary to Daenerys' court to kind of woo her into marriage. And it kind of makes sense because she needs boats and he needs kind of more strength than just the Iron Islands, because the rest of Westeros doesn't really care that much about them.
They're just pirates, aren't they?
Yeah, and I can kind of see it happening because he's right, like she needs the ships to come across here, it would make sense to her. But I'm like, damn, if he marries Daenerys, that guy is just going to be unstoppable. He's going to really fuck things up.
He really is, and there's, in the books, he has a horn. A very, very rare horn that when you blow it, you can basically control dragons. So the whole thing could be like a long con to... That's
right. We actually talked about this on the site when we wrote a feature about why you're going to care about the Greyjoys in Season 6.
That was quite perceptive, actually. Did that last week, so we'll put that in the description as well.
Yeah, but a bit like Bran, you know, up until this point, the Greyjoys and the Iron Islands in general have kind of not been up to much, or a bit of a nuisance. But this season, that's all going to change, and a big part of it is because of Euron Greyjoy, and no signs of it yet, but for people that have read the books, they know about this horn that supposedly controls dragons.
Yeah, I hope that Daenerys would meet that guy and just take one look at his sideburns and think, you are not for me. Like, the amount of guys that have tried it on with Daenerys, like a few ships hopefully aren't going to...
I can't see it going well for him, because I think she'll know exactly what he's up to, of course. But I think she's going to consider it because she needs the boats. Yeah, and
it's a potentially interesting angle, like, she's surrounded by people that are all usually really good, so to have someone around her that's
manipulative,
evil,
yeah, I can't wait. So now it's time for our favourite line/moment of the week. You probably know what's coming, but come on, it's got to be Hodor.
Hold the door! Hold the door! Hold the door! Hodor! 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 Hodor!
Sleep soundly, big man, except he probably won't. He'll probably come back, won't he?
Sad face.
Anyway, next up we're going to talk about what's next for Jon Snow.
When I heard you'd escaped Winterfell, I feared the worst. You have no idea how happy I am to see you unharmed.
Loved seeing Sansa confront Littlefinger. That bit where he's like, oh, you're unharmed. She's like, really? Really? Am I unharmed? No. I really thought she was going to maybe say to Brienne, like, yeah, cut him in half.
Yeah.
But that would have, no, he's got more trouble to make, Littlefinger, hasn't he?
Yeah,
so.
I mean, that's the irritating thing. It feels like he got off quite lightly. And also, like, his thing is sort of knowing everything. And he was like, well, I didn't realise Ramsay Bolton was a terrible prick.
He totally realised. I don't think anyone believes that he didn't realise at all.
The cool thing about all of that to me was, obviously you get like the shades of Caitlyn and Sansa, that she's suddenly being a bit of a badass.
Yeah.
I wonder if she's going to manipulate Littlefinger into helping Jon, so if the Knights of the Vale will end up helping him, because he feels like he owes her one now.
Well, it's interesting because you can see in the way that she confronts Littlefinger how actually he's influenced her. Like the fact that she's considering he might be better off alive for now because he might be able to help her. Plus the fact that she lied to her brother about how she found out the information. Like, those are not Stark qualities, you know, those are Littlefinger qualities, like, and you can kind of see why, you know, we forget how young Sansa is supposed to be when she first went to King's Landing, when she first met Littlefinger. So, and for a long time, he was her saviour. So it kind of makes sense that she would have almost picked up this kind of suspicious, manipulative almost, like, personality trait from him, especially when it turns out the guy that she thought she could trust betrayed her. It's almost reinforcing what he's taught her all along, that she can't trust anyone, that she has to play the game.
I kind of hope we see more of that. I don't want that to be the end, but it has interesting implications for what Jon does next, where he goes and who he speaks to as well.
Yeah, so they were talking, he's kind of got his war council, he's growing now, and they were talking about their plan, and they were discussing, you know, the northern houses that they can go to for help. Two of the big ones are kind of, they've already, you know, voted Bolton, but they're kind of going to set off and they're going to see if they can maybe talk some of the others into joining them.
I think they'll go to the Manderleys, because we mentioned Wyman Manderley briefly last week as a sort of loyal Stark supporter. They have actually done a casting call for a character that meets Wyman Manderley's description, because he's this big, great big fat guy. So hopefully we'll get to see that, and that seems like the most sensible first stop. And then there's lots of other houses as well, and also the Tullys.
Yes. Brienne, so Sansa sent Brienne off to the Tullys to try and get support from her uncle Blackfish. I'm really excited for this because I'm kind of hoping when we go to River Run, we're going to see the Freys get murdered.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Like, Walder Frey has basically got away with it so far. We haven't seen too much in terms of retribution, and the Blackfish is a great character as well. I really like him.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
I think it was interesting as well that the Onion Knight mentioned that Jon isn't a Stark, because Sansa is, you know, very much like the northern houses are loyal to the Starks, like they only sided with the Boltons because they didn't think they had another option. And I think that means at some point we're going to have to come to a point where Jon is legitimised in some way, either by his sister or someone else, you know, someone officially saying, no, he is a Stark, he is the rightful heir, you know.
What if he married Sansa?
Do you know what? It's funny you should say that, because when Sansa said in the episode, I'm a Stark, I actually thought that's what she was going to suggest. I thought that was a bit crazy, but you're not wrong, because if they did get married, yes, it would be creepy, but he would be, you know, a Stark. Like, they would be a very, very powerful Stark couple, you know.
Yeah, I'm
not sure whether not sure whether it'll happen, but it's interesting because I thought
stranger
maybe
things have happened in Game of Thrones.
It's very true. Yeah, and also I've got to mention Tormund and Brienne, like where she's like this crazy wildling fellow with a beard's being all weird.
That smile though, how could you resist?
Oh my goodness, I couldn't. When I broke out smiling when he smiled at her, and I was just like, oh yes.
Yeah, that gif has already done the rounds.
Yeah. That's the thing that I'm going to be keeping my eye on. Like,
but she's going away. Like,
I know.
That breaks my heart. Like,
it's long distance.
Yeah, he'll be sending her ravens. So that's all we've got for this episode, but let's look ahead to next week. The first thing we saw, I think, is a glimpse of Bran and Mira running away.
Still on the run, like we were saying, not sure how they're going to survive that. White Walkers are hot on their heels.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I don't think we can glean too much information from what we saw in the trailer, except they're just
in trouble.
Keep running.
They're in trouble, yeah.
We also saw a glimpse of Samwell Tarly going home, which is like going to be complicated for a number of reasons. I think his dad is sort of a notoriously harsh guy.
Yeah.
And he also doesn't.
Well, he threatened to kill his son unless he went to the Watch, so his younger brother could be in line to the lordship. So he's not a great guy.
Not dad of the year.
No.
And finally,
Marjorie's walk of shame, not walk of shame, because they're going to try and break her out.
Yeah, again, it's kind of hard to tell the way that's going to go, but I can't see that happening. I think that when you look at the Tyrells, they were sort of...
I think it's going to be a bloodbath, to be honest. Like, you see in the teaser that she's kind of stood exactly where Cersei was. You know, the Sparrow's getting on his high horse, being like, she's shamed everyone. And then the army suddenly there and they're pointing spears. Yeah. And I just think it's going to be an absolute bloodbath. I don't know who's going to come out on top. That's all we've got time for this week. If you enjoyed the show, please do like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
And please head over to GamesRadar.com for more Game of Thrones news, features and reviews. The link is in the description.
But for now, your watch has ended.